Hey everyone, and welcome back to AI Paper Podcasts. Today we're diving deep into a paper that's really making waves in the AI community. A survey of personalized large language models, progress and future directions.
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, I know. But trust me, it's absolutely packed with insights that I think anyone working with LLMs needs to be aware of.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. What are we really talking about here?
Well, basically, we're talking about taking these powerful LLMs we all know and love and giving them a personal touch.
So it's about making these models truly understand and respond to us as individuals, not just as generic users.
Exactly. That's the core idea. And to give our listeners a quick overview, the paper really emphasizes that we need to move beyond these general-purpose LLMs that are great at general knowledge and tasks, but they often lack that personal touch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's like having a brilliant but impersonal assistant.
Yeah.
They can answer any question you throw at them, but they don't really get you.
Precisely. So the authors argue that we need to explore how to create what they call PLLMs, or personalized large language models. And they break down the process into three main levels: personalized prompting, personalized adaptation, and personalized alignment.
Ooh, that sounds juicy. So each level is like a different approach to injecting that user-specific data into the LLM.
Exactly. Each one comes with its own set of techniques and trade-offs, and the paper does a fantastic job of exploring all of them.
It's almost like this paper is a roadmap for anyone who wants to build or understand the future of personalized AI.
I think that's a great way to put it. It really does lay out the landscape in a comprehensive way.
So it covers everything from like profile augmented prompting and retrieval augmented prompting to things like Lorhe.
Yeah, all of that. It gets pretty deep into the technical details,
Yeah.
which is great for our audience.
But it also doesn't shy away from the challenges, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
The paper dives into the practical issues like data privacy bias and the computational resources needed for some of these techniques.
Which are all things we need to be thinking about if we want to build ethical and sustainable personalized AI systems.
Absolutely. And it also looks at the different types of personalized data that can be used. Everything from user profiles and past dialogues to the content you've interacted with, and even your explicit feedback.
Wow, so much data about us is out there. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. And the paper highlights how all of that data can be used to create these incredibly personalized experiences.
Like truly personalized assistants or recommendation systems that know us better than we know ourselves.
Exactly. Imagine a world where technology adapts to you rather than you having to adapt to it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start unpacking these three levels of personalization, starting with personalized prompting. What's the core idea here?
Well, personalized prompting is all about providing the LM with specific information about the user at runtime. Think of it like giving the model hints or context to guide its responses.
So instead of just asking, like, recommend me a movie, you might say, I love sci-fi movies with strong female leads. Can you recommend something like that?
Exactly. You're not changing the model itself. You're just tailoring the input to elicit a more personalized output.
Got it. So it's like adding that personal touch to your requests.
Yeah.
And the paper dives into different techniques within this level, right? Things like profile augmented prompting and retrieval augmented prompting.
Right. Profile augmented prompting is a very straightforward approach. You basically just attach a summary of the user's profile to the prompt.
So like their age range, their interests, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's efficient and relatively simple to implement.
But what if you have way more data about the user, like their entire browsing history or years of chat logs?
That's where retrieval augmented prompting comes in. It uses a separate system to retrieve relevant information from a huge database of user data based on the current query.
Oh, so it's like giving the LLM access to a personalized knowledge base.
Precisely. It can then use that information to inform its responses and tailor them to the individual user.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but also really complex.
It definitely introduces new challenges, like how do you build an efficient retrieval system that can actually handle all of that data?
And how do you ensure that the retrieved information is truly relevant and doesn't end up misleading the LLM?
Those are some of the big questions the paper explores. And it gets into different approaches to memory management in these retrieval augmented systems.
Like some use non-parametric memory where they store the raw data and retrieve it directly, while others use parametric memory where they compress the data into a more compact representation.
Right. There's always this balance between having enough information to personalize effectively and keeping things computationally feasible.
It's fascinating to see how researchers are tackling these challenges. Okay, but before we get too lost in the weeds, let's take a step back for a moment and talk about the bigger picture. Why should we even care about making these LLMs more personal in the first place?
Well, I think it comes down to unlocking the true potential of AI. and creating systems that are truly helpful and engaging for individual users.
So it's not just about building smarter machines. It's about building machines that are better suited to our individual needs and preferences.
Exactly. Imagine a world where your AI assistant truly understands your needs, anticipates your requests, and provides support that adapts to your unique preferences and goals.
That sounds like a vision of the future we can all get behind. Okay, so personalized prompting seems like a great first step.
But
what about actually changing the model itself to make it truly personalized?
You're talking about personalized adaptation? That's the next level in this framework. And instead of just tweaking the input, personalized adaptation focuses on fine-tuning the model's parameters based on user-specific data.
So we're actually changing the underlying model, not just how we interact with it.
Right, it's like tailoring a suit.
Yeah.
You're adjusting the LLM to fit you perfectly.
Okay, I'm really intrigued by this personalized adaptation idea. But I think we should pause here for now and come back to unpack it and the final level, personalized alignment, and then the next part of our deep dive.
It's like a plan. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about already.
Definitely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI.
See you in part 2.
Okay, so we left off talking about personalized prompting, as a way to give these LLMs a little bit more of a personal touch. But I'm really curious to learn more about how we go about actually changing the model itself to make it truly personalized.
Yeah, you're thinking about personalized adaptation. That's that next level up in this framework. And so instead of just, like tweaking the input, personalized adaptation really focuses on fine-tuning the model's parameters based on user-specific data.
So it's like giving the LLM kind of like specialized training, but just for me.
Precisely. And the paper goes into some pretty clever techniques for doing this really efficiently. One that really stood out to me was LoRa low-rank adaptation.
Okay, Laura, I've heard that term thrown around, but I'll be honest, the technical details always kind of go over my head. Can you break it down for me in a way that even I can understand?
Of course. So imagine you want an LLM that's capable of writing marketing copy in your company's very specific tone of voice. Right. LoRa lets you fine-tune a pre-trained model using your existing marketing materials. And then instead of retraining the entire massive model, right, LoRa focuses on adjusting a smaller set of parameters.
So it's like adding a specialized module to the LLM that captures the essence of your brand's voice without having to rebuild the whole thing from scratch?
You got it. And the paper explores a bunch of different ways to apply LoRa for personalization. You could have one PEFT all users, where a single LoRa adapter is trained on data combined from all users, which is efficient but might not capture those individual nuances as effectively.
So it's like creating a general personalization layer that applies to everyone but isn't really tailored to anyone specifically.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, you have one PEFT per user, where each user gets their own dedicated LoRa adapter. This allows for much more fine-grained personalization, but obviously can become computationally expensive and difficult to manage when you have a ton of users.
Yeah, it seems like there's this constant tension between the level of personalization that you want and the practicality of actually implementing these techniques at scale.
Yeah, that's a really common theme in this field. But the paper also presents some pretty intriguing approaches that try to find a middle ground, like collaborative efforts.
Collaborative efforts. That sounds interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's this idea that instead of having completely isolated adapters, users can share parts of their LoRa parameters or use federated learning to train their models collaboratively.
So it's like a network of personalized models that can learn from each other without directly sharing all of their private data.
Exactly. It's a way to kind of balance privacy with personalization and still get the benefits of collaborative learning.
This is all making me think about those science fiction stories where AI becomes so personalized that it's almost like having a digital extension of yourself. Is that kind of where we're headed with personalized alignment?
Yeah, personalized alignment, that's the third and final level in this framework. And it definitely moves us closer to that vision of AI that truly understands and aligns with our individual preferences.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
How does the paper describe personalized alignment, and what are some of the techniques they highlight?
So personalized alignment really focuses on aligning the LLM's behavior, not just with general user preferences, but with your specific values and goals. It's about more than just providing information. It's about making sure that the LLM interacts with you in a way that feels helpful and appropriate and aligned with your personal style.
So instead of just giving me a list of facts, a personalized aligned LLM might explain those facts in a way that I find engaging or tailor its communication style to match mine.
Exactly. And the paper highlights multi-objective reinforcement learning as a key technique for achieving personalized alignment. It's all about training the LLM to satisfy multiple objectives at the same time.
Multiple objective. Can you give me an example?
Sure, like you might train a conversational agent to be both informative and entertaining, or you could train a recommendation system to prioritize accuracy and novelty. It's about creating a well-rounded AI that caters to your specific needs and preferences.
It's like you're almost training the AI to have a personality. But with multiple objectives, how do you make sure that the AI doesn't get confused or prioritize one over the other?
Yeah, that's definitely a key challenge. And the paper discusses different approaches. One method is to train separate reward models for each objective, and then you kind of combine them during the training process. Another approach is to train multiple specialized LLMs, each one focused on a different objective, and then you kind of merge them or ensemble them during inference.
Wow, there's so much complexity involved in creating truly personalized AI. I imagine there are some ethical considerations as well. I know we touched on this briefly before, but I think it's worth diving deeper into some of the challenges and potential risks associated with personalized LLMs.
Absolutely. Those are really crucial aspects to consider, and I think that's something that we should definitely explore further in the next segment, along with some of the open questions and future directions for this field.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground on personalized LLMs, but I'm curious about the practical side of things. Like, how do we actually make these personalized LLMs work in the real world? Like on our phones or everyday apps,
That's a great point, and the paper actually touches on this too. Right now, most of these LLMs require a ton of computing power, which makes them tricky to run on devices with limited resources like smartphones.
Yeah, makes sense.
But there's this big push to make them more efficient, more accessible through techniques like quantization and distillation.
Quantization and distillate. Okay, those sound super technical.
Yeah.
Can you give me like the ELI5 version?
Sure, think of it as like compressing a huge file,
Right.
to make it smaller and easier to share. Quantization reduces the precision of the model's parameters, so it takes up less space. And distillation basically tries to train a smaller, more efficient model that can mimic the behavior of that big one.
Ah, so we could have personalized LLMs running on our phones without needing a supercomputer in our pockets.
Exactly, that's the goal. These techniques can shrink the size and the computational demands of an LLM significantly.
That's really cool. But what about keeping these models up to date? Our preferences and behaviors change constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another big challenge the paper brings up, lifelong updating. How do we make sure that these models evolve with us?
Right, they can't just be static snapshots in time.
Yeah, exactly. Researchers are looking into things like continual learning, where models can continuously learn from new data without forgetting everything they've learned before.
So it's a bit like tending a garden. You have to keep nurturing and adapting them.
That's a great analogy, and I think it's really important to emphasize user control in this whole process. As these personalized LLMs become more prevalent, users need to understand how these models work, what data they're using, and they need to have the ability to adjust their preferences and, really control how that personalization happens.
Transparency is key, right? Users shouldn't feel like this AI is just some black box they have no control over.
Exactly. And I think that brings us to one of the biggest takeaways from this paper. We're at this really exciting point in AI. We're shifting away from these generic one-size-fits-all models to these highly personalized systems that can really get us and respond to our individual needs.
It's exciting, but also kind of daunting.
Definitely. It demands careful consideration of the implications and the challenges.
This paper does an amazing job of outlining the current state of personalized AI and giving us a glimpse into the future.
I agree. It's been a really insightful deep dive.
Huge thanks to our expert for walking us through all of this.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the full paper, a survey of personalized large language models, progress, and future directions, to learn more about the technical details and all the amazing possibilities of personalized AI. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.